Hello everybody and welcome to my Lightroom Potential, which I am thinking of calling, I'm not really crazy about Lightroom Potential, I'm thinking of calling it the Artist Lightroom. I think that's a much better way because this is not very structured. It's a kind of an organic way I do photos, hopping from module to module and just kind of, what do you call that type of thinking? Just kind of like free form, free for all kind of thinking. So let me get started here. I've got this image straight out of camera. It's shot it at 1000 ISO. It's a picture of a bird over a pond in Hempstead Heath on a very foggy morning. I see a lot of textural detail in here, but it's blocked out by the fog, which I like. I see an overall blue cast, which is all right. What I want to do is I want to look at my histogram over here. I see I have no real blacks. I've got a lot of highlights and a bit of mid-tones. I want to increase the contrast. I want to pump up the color through saturation. And I'll be using the HSL module to do that. I'll be using the basic module to do my contrast adjustments along with the tone curve. And probably start out with dehaze, but before we start that, let me just my default sharpening is pretty good. I always want to sharpen an image a little bit initially to have it look good while you're working with it. You don't want it too soft. Okay, so let's begin. First, I want to go down to the dehaze slider here and crank that up and see what it does to the image. Yeah, at 100, I can see it takes out a lot of fog. It leaves the mist on the water there, which I like, but I don't want to reduce the fog so much. And plus, it gets really oversaturated. I mean, it really bumped up my blacks and flattened out my highlights, but it's a bit too severe. I don't want to do that all with dehaze. I want to be a lot more subtle, so I'm going to put that to 50. We'll toggle that on and off and see what that looks like. Yeah. So it's giving me some better darks and a little bit of saturation in there starting to come out in the sky and the water. Okay, so after that I will go to the basic module. This is usually where I start. I see the blue cast here and I'm thinking maybe I should just get a reading with my white balance tool here, which is W on the keyboard. And I'll just pick a spot here and I'll just do it in the gray here. And click there. So my white balance went from 5400 to 6150. It's a bit warmer now, probably a bit more natural looking. And I'm probably not going to get oversaturated with blues now that I've changed my color balance a bit. So let me turn up the saturation. One way to see what colors are going to come out of your image is if you crank up the saturation all the way, you can see how these oranges popped. I've got reds in here, the blues in the sky. I've got some warm tones in the water there. Looks really nice. But of course I don't want that type of saturation in this image. Just a bit too gaudy, a bit too harsh. Okay, so I want to play with my highlights, shadows, whites, and blacks here. First of all, in the basic module. So let me go to my blacks and bring that down a little bit. I'd like to see what my highlights are going to do, because really the clouds are kind of suffering from lack of detail, but we'll resolve that later. I'll bring that down, play with my whites, like so, play with the shadows. I like the shadows up a bit. Remember, when you're doing this, it's a very organic process, okay? You don't, like if you adjust your shadows, and then you do something in your effects or your tone curve, you can always go back. They're not set in stone. You should always go back and turn the module on and off, readjust the slider, all through your processing. Right? Let me take, because that will help you understand how these modules interact. Right now I'm going to push Control J, and I am going to turn off the overlay, which is this here, right? Just turn that off because I don't like looking at that while I'm working. Okay, and then I'm going to get rid of this panel here. Now I've got lots of Lots of workspace. Alright, so I don't usually use the global contrast, but in this instance I might do a little bit to see how that's going to work. And I can always go back, and this is independent of these 4 sliders here. So if I crank this up and I see that my blacks are getting a bit too much, I can always go back and slide that out there. Yeah? Or just any of them again. Like now I see that the whites need to come down a bit. Okay. So that's going to be it for that module at this point. Okay? Now you can't toggle the basic module on and off, so I'm just going to shut that. I'm going to go back down to effects and see what the dehaze does now. That's fine. I think I'll leave that back. Maybe 50. It was on 50. Now I'm 54. That's fine. So I'll leave that there. That looks pretty good so far. If I hit Y, I get my before and after. You can see quite a bit difference already. I've lost some of the atmospheric effects there because of the dehaze, but I have gained a lot of texture in the sky. Yeah, you can't see that there, but now I'm getting all that texture there. So that's good. I'm happy with that now. Now for the color, let's go to the HSL, which is the hue, saturation, and luminance panel. Now what this allows me to do is, you see all in my histogram here, I've got the red, green, blue, and I've got my grayscale on top. I can adjust just the red for any one of these inputs, hue, saturation, and luminance, independently of the other colors. So if I want to go to saturation and I want to take all the blue out of this picture, you just drag it all the way down and all my blue's gone, but you can still see here my oranges are there, right? If I put the blue back, it's not affecting that orange. But if I go to the orange slider here, I'm assuming this is orange and not yellow. Drag that down. See, just gets rid of that one color. All right, let's try something here. What I'd like to do is, like, I love these textural ripples in the water here, and I want to bring those out via clarity. Excuse me. I don't want to add clarity to the whole image because it's inherently nice and soft image, and if I add clarity, it makes it really harsh and quite ugly. So I might even go minus clarity to soften it up a bit at some point, but I would do that later. But what I want to do right now is hit M and go to my graduated filter. You get this new panel over your basic module. Okay, and these adjustments here are just for the graduated filter that I'm now dragging up. Okay, I'm holding shift to hold it straight. If I don't hold shift, it goes this way, but as soon as I hold shift, it makes it level, okay? And if I hit O on the keyboard, it shows me my mask. Now the red represents what is going to be affected by this graduated filter, okay? You don't want to work with that on, so you hit O again, turn it off, and then I'm going to go over here, and exposure's at let me set my exposure and contrast to default. And then I'm going to grab my clarity and drag it up. You notice how it brought out the texture in just the water. It got rid of some of the fog feel in the front, but that's okay. I'll put that there and maybe play with exposure, see how that works. Actually, no, I'm not exposure, but contrast. Bring some contrast in there. And then I toggle Y again. Actually, I could toggle it on and off by doing this. This is what I should have said. That looks nice. You can see how it's darkening the corner here, but I can get rid of that with some vignetting later. Or I could probably just drag the shadows on here up, Drag the shadows up. Drag the whites up. And the blacks down. Oh, blacks, no, I'll leave the blacks alone. That's too severe. Let's see what the highlights does. That adds a little snap to the water there. That's nice. Now I'll toggle that on and off. Okay, that looks pretty good. I also want to put one in the sky, so I will click. I actually don't need to click since I'm already in the tool. I will just go to drag to the top, hold down Shift, and then let go. And now I have a second mask up here, a graduated filter. I'll show you the mask by holding down O. Not holding down, but just pushing O. Drag that down just so it's not touching the trees. That's good. And then I'll hit O again to get rid of that. And then I'll add, now it's copied all the inputs. You can see that it stayed the same for this mask here. All right, so if I click on it and it's got it'll put the dark circle in the middle, right? This is the active one. If I went down here and click that, that would be the active one. I want this active, but I don't want these settings for this mask. I do want the clarity. Actually, maybe I do. I don't want the highlights, so I'm going to drag the highlights the other way. And the shadows, see what that does. And the blacks, there's no blacks up there, so that's not going to do anything really good. But maybe bring the exposure down just a little bit. Contrast down. Exposure down. Just a touch. Okay? Now let's toggle those on, both of them on and off. That has a nice effect, okay? I like that. One thing I might want to do is come back and bring the highlights down. I might do that globally. Okay, so I'll leave those on. I'll close them there. And then I think I should go back to I want to get some more detail in the whites there. I think it's still too bright, so I'm going to go to my shadows, my whites here, and go a bit more minus. That's not really working. Maybe I'll just do exposure. There we go. So I brought those down now. You can see all the textural detail I've got in there. That looks nice. But this has become too dark. So instead of doing a global, instead of going back and increasing my exposure, I could just go to my shadows and bring those up a bit. And then maybe my blacks a bit. Okay, and I'll toggle Y, see what that looks like. Huge difference. Looks really nice. Once I get that kind of very kind of nuanced contrast grade I want, I can close this module, and then to fine tune it, I would use my tone curve. Now let's see, I want to keep the highlights the same, so I'm going to lock it right there. And then I'm going to bring up the shadows. For some reason, I'm liking it a little bit more high key. Alright, so maybe just that there. Toggle this on and off, see what that looks like. Bring the highlights down a little bit. I definitely don't want to lose that misty morning feeling. That's looking pretty good to me. I can always come back and change that again. Now I'll go back to my basic module and bring my shadows down, see what that's looking like. Yeah, see I brought them way down. Okay, so that looks good. At this point, once I have the contrast the way I like it, I might let's see, add some vibrance. Try vibrance and saturation, see how those work. Yeah, saturation's just so gaudy sometimes. It's just maybe just a little bit, right? But one thing I really like to do is split toning, like I said in the last video. I want to give this, you can see my highlights here, peaking blue, right? That's okay, but I wanted to give it a bit more of a warm feel, so I'm going to go I'll pick this yellow right here, and I'll put that as my highlight yellow, okay? And then I will desaturate that a bit. A lot, actually. And then come to my shadows and make them a bit blue. Drag that down a little bit. Now this is completely, I don't know how this is going to work. I might not like it. I might like it a lot. And then switch this slider here. Bring this saturation down and this one down. With split toning, you don't want to use, you don't want to go up here to some really strong colors, right? You definitely want to use something down here which is more desaturated. It's just a subtle change. It's not, you don't want to make it dramatic. Alright, so I like that. Oh, changed them both to blue, so let me see here. Don't want to go the green side, so go there. Let me use this one again and then desaturate that. Yellow's a bit too strong. Now let me toggle this off. See what that looks like. Honestly, I can't say I like that too much. Actually, I'll turn the split toning off for now, and I'll come back to, have we done this yet? I'll come back to the HSL, and I'm going to go to Luminance, and I'm going to grab the little adjustment tool here. Now this tool, you click on it and you'll get this cursor, and then you click and drag up and down, and then the color that you click on is the one that'll be affected. You can see the blue slider, blue and a bit of aqua being adjusted, right? Now this is the brightness of those values. Now unlike the clarity and on the basic tone where you can go to 100 with no problems, in the HSL you have to be really careful, because if you go too much you start to get this blotchiness and kind of patterning. You can see like these kind of streaks in the image there. That, and if I turn that off, yeah, see how it disappeared? But you can get that streaking. I'm not sure what causes that, but it doesn't really look good. It starts to make your image look really kind of badly processed and artificial. So I could always drag that blue back until that disappears. Now let me toggle that on and off. Oof, let's see the trees here. What color are we working with here? Probably a red. It's like an orange. Let me grab this tool again. Click in here and see what it. There we go. So it's like a purple. The heck did I just do? Oh, untoggled the black and white. So let me go here again and grab that purple. That seems to be working. The tools doesn't seem to be. I think my computer's been a bit slow. But let me toggle that on and off there. I'm not seeing all the big changes in the tree, so let's try saturation and then bring the purple. Now look at this. What happens when I do this? I'll show you what happens when you do it too much. See that? I suppose that you start to get that streaking again. Not the dots, but the streaking. Yeah? That's too much. So let's go back. Then the orange, got this orange tree here, which looks a bit, it's kind of bright there, so maybe I'll bring that down a bit. Or desaturate it a bit. That seems to be the only orange in the picture. You might want that orange tree more saturated, but I'm not finding it really that great. Okay, looks pretty good. If you wanted to kind of really tweak these colors individually and you know what you're working with, you could always hit the color tab here and just do each color individually. Here you get your three different variables, and you can change them right here. I don't usually work with hue because it just never has a good result. Hue, what am I hue? Saturation, orange, yellow. Make my tree brighter. Oof, that's doing some horrible stuff in the sky there. See that? Look at the clouds. So there's a lot of yellow in the clouds, so I got to be careful what I'm doing here with my saturation. I prefer to work on this panel here and have it like this. Okay, I'm going to turn my split toning back on, and it looks dreadful. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to turn that off. I'm going to get rid of the blue. We just go to a gray and just add some yellow to the highlights there. Toggle it on and off. Yeah, that looks pretty nice. Let's toggle before and after. Let's see before and after like this. You see I brought out a lot more detail with the dehaze. I've got a bit more saturation with my HSL and the dehaze, and I'm not sure if I added saturation from the basic module. I did 10 points, but it's still looking a bit purplish to me. I mean, the water, I'm not liking this color too much, so I might go back to the HSL and definitely bring this purple down. Yeah, I mean, I really don't know why the trees are purple. Probably just noise artifacts from that high ISO. Just, you know, they're very deep in shadows, and I brighten them up, so I'm not getting kind of true color values. It looks a little bit better without that purple in there. Look, I'll reset this. Yeah, I mean, who's ever heard of a purple tree? We're not on Mars or anything, so yeah, because they have purple trees on Mars, Anthony. There we go. So I'm going to bring that down like so. Maybe I'll bring the yellow or the orange up a bit, because I do have a bit of orange. There we go. That tree is just too bright. Play with it like that and toggle this again. I prefer this split screen. Yeah, that looks nice. So after I've done all this and I've kind of like what I've got, I'll just create a snapshot. Call it test 1 or draft or something. And now I have it as a snapshot over here. You can see I've worked with it before. Then I'm going to go back to my basic module. Get rid of this window. And what should I do? Global contrast. I'll play with that too. Something that looks good. Then my highlights. If I hold down Alt while I drag my highlights here, I will know if something is the same as holding this down here. I don't have anything out of gamut, otherwise it would show red. Let me try a little vibrance or clarity, sorry. A little, actually minus clarity, because I don't want to lose that softness. Okay, that looks pretty good, and I don't know how long this took, but that looks pretty good. I like it. I might go back to the dehaze module again and maybe pump that up. If it doesn't seem to be adding so much contrast as it did before. Looks pretty sweet. I've got a bit of vignetting around the corner here, and this corner here I could put another graduated filter, but don't need to do that right now. I might even add a bit more vignette around the picture, or if I drag it into the plus, it goes positive, it goes brighter. That looks nice. Last thing I'm going to do is get rid of this one spot that I did not see here. Right, so I'll hit Q for my my spot removal tool. I'm using my bracket keys to make it larger than the actual spot, and then just click, and it'll sample from over here and get rid of it perfectly most of the time. Alright, and then hit Q again, and there we go. All done. Now what I do now is, after I've finished this, I got what I like. I mean, I could play with it a lot more. You know, I'll probably make 3 or 4 snapshots and then decide later which one I like the best. But before I would share it or, you know, put it on my website or anything, I'd go back to detail and fine tune the sharpening. Now, the first initial sharpening was just for working a little bit, but this one would be for outputting, okay? And like I say, I'll make a video on sharpening. I would recommend going to cambridgeandcolor.com and reading their articles on sharpening. It can be very involved. You know, it might be nice with this. You can see the noise I have here, or grain. I mean, since it's 1000 ISO, we can exaggerate that, give it more of an analog feel by just adding grain. I've been doing this quite a bit, you know, and you can change the structure, the size of it. If I was using like an old black and white film, this starts to look like it. Too much structure there. Size. I'll turn that on and off. And unfortunately, when you turn this on and off, it does, you know, it's everything in this module. So I can't see the grain effect separately unless I was the only thing that was on in this module. Looks a bit too much, so I'll come down there. You can see I said I was done, but I'm still playing with it. One thing that's bothering me is the saturation, so I'm going to go back here and just turn the saturation down. I've got plenty of nice color in there. And if you don't like the way saturation works, vibrance is really nice. It tends not to pump up the warmer colors towards skin tones. That's what it's designed to use on faces. If you want to saturate an image without making somebody look orange, you would use vibrance and not saturation, because saturation does the warm tones just as powerfully as it does the cools and the cool colors. Okay, well, there we go. I hope you like that. I hope you found it interesting. I know it's a very kind of fluid, organic process, back and forth between the modules, just tweaking here and there. And you know, remember, if you like something, just come up here, hit snapshot, record it, and then you can go all the way back to reset from the very beginning, and then have a look at your snapshots. Like I did this one called final question mark. I look at this now and go, oh, don't even like that. I did another one called draft 1. Don't even like that anymore. And I have all these here that I like. And the little navigator will show you a preview before you actually snap on it. Where's the one I actually like? This one. And that's the one I just did. Okay, thanks a lot. I will see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.